Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Wow, the eve before New Year's Eve, and then we're going to hit 2020. Unbelievable how time flies. Tonight I've got some fantastic Dogman encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also want to recommend a beard grooming company. I just started growing a beard, and for all of my listeners who have a beard or have someone in their lives with a beard, there is a company called Badass Beard Care, and their link will be in the description below as well. They make some amazing product, and it's vet owned, so it does support some veterans of the United States of America. Now, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these Dogman encounters, shall we? This encounter is actually a series of encounters by one person and their friends. It all takes place in Winnebago County, Illinois. The first time I saw the Dogman, I was a little kid and reading the book, The Magic Treehouse, late at night, when I saw it peering through my bedroom window. It had a massive head with black fur and pointed ears. I didn't see the eyes at first, I just saw the teeth, and they were yellow like they had tartar on it. It moved its hand in a gesture that I really didn't understand meant come here. Unable to scream, I slowly pulled the covers over my head and cried silently. After a couple of minutes, I ran out of my room and didn't look back. I stored that in the back of my head for years until I was an incoming freshman. For reference, my dad is 6'2", and he doesn't even reach to where that head was. My second encounter with the Dogman happened in the summer of 2014. I saw it on all fours in the woods. My friends and I had accidentally discovered a quarry. We thought it was a pond to fish in, that's a whole different story, but it was still a good fishing spot. The biggest giveaway that it wasn't a wolf was being in Illinois. The second was the build and structure of its shoulders. They weren't what I expected to see when I had seen wolves in the zoo up close. This almost had a hump-like due to its arms being shorter than its back legs. The third being the overall size. It was massive, even on all fours. It was belly high to me, and I was 5'6" at the time. The reason why I ended up chasing it was because I had stayed behind, trying to tie a swivel onto my fishing line. It was headed down the path to the quarry to where my friends were. I chased it full speed, fishing pole in hand and backpack in tow. It turned a corner before me and it basically disappeared. It was so quick, because when I turned the corner it was gone. I swear it even smiled at me with this playful way while I was trying to chase it down, and it was looking back at me. I asked my friend if he had saw, and he laughed at the idea of wolves being in Illinois, which is what I thought, until I remembered what I saw when I was a kid. That's when the obsession kicked off. My next encounter was September of 2018. I didn't see it this time, my friends did. It was around 11:30 at night. My friends and I were playing a game called Missing Man. It's like hide and seek, but on a bigger scale with the whole woods to hide in. The object is to find the missing man. I stayed back because I started to get a little sketched out. The missing man was my best friend, and I have an unfair advantage to my friends. I have better hearing, sight, and tracking, and somewhat of a night vision. My senses are sharper because I have Asperger's. However, I am intelligent. With that being said, the thing is there was 3 different noises. The group walking, my friend basically outmaneuvering them, However, the third was following the group from what I heard, but stayed a good distance away. I quickly ran into the woods and grabbed my friend, and thought it would be best if we had the rest of the group come back. Our phones were dead, so I decided to improvise and scream like I was in actual peril. The group ran out to the entrance. My best friend and I were laughing our asses off, until one of them said, "Something was following us. We thought it was you until you didn't jump out at us, and then it was behind us. Then we heard you scream." They were right. I stayed at the entrance and only went in to recover my best friend. So they sat there calling me a dickhead for a couple minutes until we all hear this blood-curdling, gut-wrenching scream. At that moment, I said it sounds like a woman screaming in a horror movie, mixed with a squeal. We all looked at each other for a few minutes, and one of us said, "What do you think it means?" I said, "It means we get the fuck out of here." So we did for a little bit. A fear washed over me because I've been face to face with that, and I wanted to forget about what I saw all those years ago. So I was sitting in my friend's truck bed. My friends split up into groups and went into the woods to see what it was. They came back an hour later, terrified. We left the area only to have more bad luck, a different story. On the way back from dropping myself and my two friends off, we got a snap from the friend who was driving like 5 minutes later. He said we saw it again by the park in the woods, running. The next encounter was a week later, and my friends decided to go on an expedition and look for it. At that point, I told my friends that I had experimented with different things to try to lure it out. I said, let's try a rabbit distress call and some coyote calls. So we enter the woods, and right away we noticed some big-ass human-like footprints, and one that would be comparable to a small child. It was behind us right away and on the right, so we cut left to a cleared cornfield, just in case it tried to make a move on us. Something was throwing rocks at us over the trees because it was too dense to throw rocks through. At that point, we realized it was still behind us, so we cut to a neighborhood and watched by an empty cornfield edge. We were able to make out a Dogman. We waited for a while until we couldn't see it or hear it anymore. We realized it was starting to get dark and we needed to get back home. We didn't want to take the neighborhood because it was quicker through the woods, and one of my friends had to be home in less than 40 minutes. So we cut back, and I told the guys to turn off their flashlights and let it get closer to us and get a better look. I said, when I say when, that's when we'll turn the lights on. Finally, I said when, and we did, and we were able to make out a face, the ears, and the glow of its eyes. It got out of the light in under a second. That's how quick it was. I went back the next morning to investigate to see if there was anything else out there. When I got there, I saw some tracks, which I destroyed. I destroyed it basically because there was a family unit that had a juvenile, and I wanted to keep it under wraps. My friend mentioned Bigfoot comes through there at a certain time of the year, but nobody believed him until then. We assumed it was mistaken identity for a Dogman, or he was just crazy. Around December time, I told my little cousin about the incidents, and he started making fun of me. I told him I don't make stuff up like that. We were waiting for another friend to show up on the gravel road, but guess who was hiding behind the fence? My little cousin started shaking me and yelling, "I thought you were kidding," to which I replied, "I tell you no jokes and don't pull pranks." My friend pulled up and we jumped in. We went ice skating, and then I fell and really messed up my shoulder. We went to B-Dubs to have wings, and then went to drop off my cousin and my other friend on the other side of town. Sure enough, it was a creepy atmosphere. It had just gotten done raining and was foggy. We were talking about how we think it hunts, and I said there sure is an odd amount of roadkill on this stretch of land. Not a second later, boom, there's a deer. Brake check. It stopped. My friend honked the horn and started to move a little. The doe was in shock and booked it out of there. Then we started laughing because it was kind of funny and a little bit ironic. To our disbelief, there it was on all fours, humpback and all. The final encounter that I had was in May of 2019. My ex-girlfriend was going through a thrill-seeking phase and decided to drive through the place where I had seen it when we were playing Missing Man. She was sketched out and drove off, but I caught a glimpse of the Dogman. I went deathly quiet and just sat there. My ex knew something was up and kept asking me what was wrong, what was wrong. She knew how I was acting because I don't act like that normally. Okay guys, and the next part of today's upload is actually I've got some written notes, but a lot of what I'm going to talk about now is right off the top of my head. I've talked about theory lately, a couple of theories and ideas that I've had. The one being the inorganic beings, possibly being what people are calling the rake or crawler. To me, it fits. The second theory or idea that I had was I was at a doctor's appointment and I was reading like a 7-year-old National Geographic. It's something about doctors' offices that they'd never want to upgrade or update their magazines, but I'm kind of glad that he didn't, because there was an article, an interesting article on the thylacine. And the thylacine, as you guys know, went extinct in the early 1900s. The last captive thylacine died in 1919. I think the last wild one was 1908. I'm not 100% sure. But in 1902, there was one captive male in the Bronx Zoo. Somewhere between 1902 and 1912, zoo to zoo, a thylacine, a breeding pair of thylacine were getting transported. And they were coming up or on the Atlantic to the East Coast, and they were by North Carolina, in that region, and they were going to go up the coast to the Bronx Zoo. And this boat had crashed and some animals had escaped, some had perished. Well, they didn't know if the thylacine had perished. They thought it did, but there's no proof because there was no bodies found. And then I got thinking, wow, I was looking at this picture, the black and white picture, and how odd of a creature it is, but a beautiful creature, and how alien-like it is to North American creatures. And then I got thinking, I was like, wow, wait a second, because there was that one picture when it has its mouth open, and it's got that huge elongated snout with that huge mouth that opens almost like a snake, like it's too big for their head. And when I went home, I started looking up Chupacabra encounters, and there aren't a lot of written Chupacabra encounters prior that time in the 1900s. Actually, I couldn't find any prior to the 1940s. So then I got thinking, this true breeding pair of thylacine during this accident may have survived and traveled south to where the heat is. After all, they're from Australia, Tasmania, and some had been spotted in Papua New Guinea. And an evolutional change in their biology and their looks, they kind of adapted to the climate here. Possibly they lost their hair, like the Chihuahua or the hairless cats, how they evolved to stay cool. Maybe that's what happened, or maybe with the stress. Who knows? Now, once again, it's just theory. But they're also marsupials, so they don't reproduce as many pups as a normal wolf would. And also, wolves are carnivorous, so therefore the thylacine is carnivorous. What is the chupacabra? The quote-unquote goat sucker. Now, there's an interesting picture of a chupacabra, a supposed chupacabra, where it is bald and it has a very elongated snout, and its belly looks strange. And to me, if you shaved a thylacine and a thylacine dropped maybe 10 pounds, that's what I was looking at in that picture. Just theory, speculative guessing, but that's the one theory that I was thinking about for a while now, and it was interesting to me because the evolutional change in animals can happen very quickly. There's a island, I think in Burma, I'm not sure, but in Africa, maybe Burma. For some reason, I want to say Burma. But on this island, it was like a waterlocked, landlocked island. It was very strange how the island was. It was in the middle of land, but in the middle of water. And all that was on this island was lions and these huge buffalo, these water buffalo, just huge. And what happened was the lions, over a period of time, got bigger because they needed to. Evolution made them get bigger to hunt these buffalo. And that's a true biological event. A gentleman, Forrest Gallant, actually did a study on them, and he's a biologist. And I had listened to something he had done, and he was talking about that, and then I started thinking about the evolutionary change of a thylacine being introduced to a different habitat, a different environment. Could that have changed? Could that be the chupacabra? And interestingly enough, that would be crazy if it was a couple of 50 years of evolution and breeding, because one, the thylacine is now classified as a cryptid because people are claiming to see them again, and there's been no case study solved yet. And the chupacabra is a cryptid. Wouldn't that be very interesting if one day a biologist or someone tranked the supposed chupacabra and did a blood analysis and found out that this was the thylacine at one point, because their DNA changes during the evolutionary process too, but still there's the residual bloodline left. Just really interesting. And like I said a while back, I was thinking and I had these ideas, and I started reading some scientific studies and looking at the scientific view of it along with my view, and I don't know, maybe I could be off my fucking rocker, and more than likely I am, but I'd like to know what you guys think. How off do you think I am, or how on do you think I am? And with that, I want to thank everybody for the support, and I'd hope that you guys check out the Badass Beard Care website. That link will be in the description below. Also, I did a product review video a little while ago, earlier today. Check that out, and check out my new beard and see how much of a weirdo I look like. And with that, guys, I want to bid you farewell.